Wars is free, no fee, no fuss, but a buck on Patreon would be less us. Keeps the gears turning, the tea in the cup, and stops me from giving this whole thing up.
Iwi nefru remetu, apparently, which is something approximating hello lovelies in reconstructed ancient Egyptian. Today we're going to be taking a look at Crypt the Pharaoh's Curse by Raven CS McCracken, infamous as the creator of World of Cinnabar. Full disclosure, I got sent a whole bunch of this for free, 2 boxes. Raven is also someone I've come to consider to be a friend. He was considered a bit of a punchline, I think, much like Byron Hall of Fatal fame, which is something that's brutally unfair to Raven, who is a boundlessly enthusiastic and endlessly positive sort of guy, who just put all his crazy enthusiasm on paper, and people were mean about it. Sure, Cinnabar is a Byzantine and crazy mess, but once you've met Raven, you kinda get why that is. He's like a mirror universe version of Venger without the beard. I like the guy, in short, and I want his efforts to succeed, largely because I like the guy. So that's my bias up front. Right then, welcome to Crypt the Pharaoh's Curse. It is a game of tomb raiding, curses, hence the name, and probably dying several times before somebody gets to limp out of the tomb with a shiny magic key and a bit of a smug grin. You get to play as the unlucky descendant of a grave robber who pissed off the dark gods of Egypt some time back, and so now you're sort of cursed to wander this shifting labyrinth full of monsters, traps, and other would-be looters, and cursed scions of looting families. The goal's simple enough: get the key, reach an exit hex, and roll doubles on 2 dice to escape. Do that, and congratulations, you've escaped the afterlife with your organs still in your body rather than in a delightful series of decorative jars. Each player picks a character card, such as this one, which is the Warlord. You might be a Spellmancer, a Warlord, an Avenger, whatever flavour of doomed explorer you fancy, whatever floats your boat down the Nile. The card tells you what the makeup of your deck should be, what kind of things you're allowed to use, what kinds of toys you're best at using, whether they be spells, tech, weapons, or whatever eldritch junk the gods have left lying around. You'll build a deck of between 25 to 50 cards, with limits on how many of each rarity you're allowed to cram into that deck. 1 ultra rare, 3 extra rare, and so on. Even in the underworld, you can't escape balancing spreadsheets. Then you grab at least 5 hex tiles, one of which has to be an exit. And these hexes form the crypt as you explore it, a randomly built dungeon that unfolds as you play. You can mark all of your cards with your initials, and then you can shuffle everyone's tiles together into one pile. Because nothing says teamwork like wandering to someone else's death trap that's been laid to vex you. Vex hexes, you might call them. Each player gets tokens for their character and any creatures or units that they might command later. One side has your symbols on them, the other has printed life point counters. So you can track your health by flipping or sliding the token without any pen, paper, no hieroglyphic maths. I mean, what the fuck is scarab times ibis equals frog anyway? One side of these has your symbols for your various things, the other has printed life point counters. I would show you, but when I set the box down, all the cards and tokens fell out onto the floor. So much for that. But there's little square tokens, much as you might have seen in old sort of hex map and chit board games in the past. Right? It's like that. One side has a number of life points on it, between 1 and whatever. And the other side has a little initial thing, so you can show which one's your character, or you can use to mark monsters or whatever. Though you could use whatever else you have to hand. Little Lego figures, whatever you wanted. 3D would certainly enhance things a bit. Right. So what else do I need to go over? Alright, so you set aside life points for your character next to your character card. You draw 3 cards. Right, which have various effects. And then you roll off dice to see who gets to go first. For example. Okay. You set up your first hex, whoever goes first. You ignore any special effects that hex might have on the first turn when you set out on your journey. Let's use a glow-in-the-dark dice to represent my character. Okay, so you ignore that the first time, and then from there you start building out this tomb, this crypt, and all the things in it as you search for both the key and the exit. Every turn's got 4 phases. Try not to forget them, between being bitten, burned, buried alive under sand, or having your soul sucked out through your asshole. First, you draw a card from your deck. That's optional, but unless you like dying unarmed, you probably should be drawing cards out of there. When you run out, you just shuffle the discard pile and you carry on as before. Right, on phase 2, you make any free actions, so you play any cards that it says you can play at any time. Traps, buffs, dirty tricks, equipping a weapon, for example. All of those sorts of things. So you can get to do all of that. You can lay traps on other people's hexes, you can apply buffs, play dirty tricks, whatever makes you feel like an Egyptian god with poor impulse control. Phase 3, you take your actions proper. And this is where the magic or the dismemberment happens. You can move to an adjacent hex if there is one. You can explore a new one by moving into an open space and revealing the next hex. You can... So when you do move into a hex, that's when it triggers the hex effect. So this one is a Misty Grotto. No ranged actions function in this hex. Avengers get +3 damage, right? So each hex has its own effect. And that comes into effect while you're in or when you enter the hex. If there's a monster there, it will spawn from that hex when you enter it. Though it will stay there as long as it remains undefeated and then respawn when someone else enters that hex. Or some hex-specific event takes place. You can attack something in your hex. If there was a monster or a rival or whatever else, you could attack it. You can play a card from your hand if appropriate, or use a tabled card that you've already set up. Some hexes have events that you have to trigger, so you can do that and probably regret it. And if you've got the key and you're on an exit hex, you can try your luck to escape from the whole place. Each character can take 1 action unless they've got bonuses stacked up. And with the right cards, you can pull off more actions and some pretty sweet card combos that go together. On phase 4, you can discard unwanted cards, face up into your discard pile. If your hand's over the limit, that's mandatory. If it's not over the limit, you can just do it anyway if you want to tidy things up a little bit. Anything that targets someone else counts as an attack. That player gets a defense turn, whether they play a defense card or roll their dodge on 2d6. Roll equal to or under your dodge score and you avoid the hit. So let's see, a warlord's dodge score is 6 or lower. So I rolled a 7, so I would have been hit. That's unfortunate. And so on, right? So you get your defense turn. You can play a defense card or roll your dodge. I failed. Roll equal to or under your dodge score and you avoid the hit. Damage gets absorbed by any defenses that you might have up, like armor, shields, bodyguards, agents, summoned golems, whatever else, before spilling over onto your character. Once your life points hit 0, you're not exactly dead, just different. You're not out of the game. So you're never entirely out of the game even when you lose your character. Because death isn't the end here, this being, an ancient Egyptian horror crypt. Instead, what happens when you're defeated, you drop your key if you had one where you fell, you dump your hand of cards, and then you get to dominate or control either one of your own agents or a nearby monster, which you then take control of. From that point on, you play as the critter. You can't draw or play cards, but you can still move, attack, cause people headaches, all of that sort of thing. And if a creature that you're dominating somehow manages to grab the key and escape, then you win. Yeah, imagine being beaten by your own zombie that you summoned. It's a bit like being mugged by your cat. Now, that happens all the time, actually. It's more like being bullied by the roaches that live in your walls. The crypt itself is a shifting mess of hex tiles, which interlock through these entries and exits, which are marked by these little sets of steps. Right, so they have to lock together the right way that happens. Each one has an event printed on it. Walk into a new hex, that event goes off immediately. It could be a trap, a monster, a healing spring, or a room full of gas. Usually it's gas, all those rotting bodies, I reckon. Other cards could be tabled into a hex, so you can place a card on a hex, or next to it, or slightly under it, whichever works best for you. Traps, creatures, things like that. That turns them into extra events. So when multiple things are happening in one hex, the tile's native event, the one on the tile, triggers first, and then the add-ons resolve in order that they've been played. Some hexes also have character-specific bonuses, like this one favouring the Avenger. A warlord might be able to avoid traps in their own tombs, or a spellmancer might get a free action. Think of it as divine nepotism. Nepo rabies from Anubis, whatever. Moving straight forward, one hex at a time, through connected doorways. If you explore a new area through an open doorway, you draw a new hex from the pile, place it properly, and move in, immediately triggering the next event, because you never learn. If you stay in a hex, that's fine. I think the event goes off again at the end of your turn. So ancient tombs don't really appreciate loiterers. I don't think monsters spawn unless you move out and move back in, though, if you've defeated them. To win, you just have to have the key, which will be somewhere in your draw pile, because you always have to have one in there. You have to be standing on an exit hex, and you have to roll doubles on your d6, which I didn't. That's your golden ticket out of this sandy nightmare. Everyone else, they're still cursed, still fighting, still pretending they're not jealous of the guy who ran away first. In Crypt, no one's ever really dead, just temporarily inconvenienced, and the desert always gets its due. So pick your future ghost, shuffle your deck, and you'll prepare to be entombed in regret. That's the basics. There's also more deluxe rules that explain things a bit more. There are tournament rules, which are more strict, and there are solitaire rules, which I've fiddled about with a bit, so you can play it by yourself. It's a fun sort of game. Great when a player fails to show up. I would most liken it to that classic solo player game, Chainsaw Warrior, but with multiple players also trying to dick each other over all the time. The rules are pretty basic and workmanlike. The constraints of a board game have reined in some of Raven's worst instincts in game design to make games rather Byzantine and complex. Though the rules papers, they could be a bit clearer and more rationalised. I think I've summarised them correctly, though I've missed out on some special cases, etc. on purpose. You can pick up the rules for free for yourself and check them out at cryptboardgame.com. The artwork is mixed, mostly illustrative and graphical, but often lacking a little bit of pizzazz and failing to truly lean into the ancient Egypt aesthetic. Some pieces, like the character illustrations, are too small to really make out. Character cards, for example, might work better on the larger hexes, I think, or scaled to that size and included as a deluxe version in hex card packs as a rare card or something. The little tokens are also a little bit unsatisfying, though they do work. Again, a deluxe add-on with standees and little card-based figures or something for the characters or the monsters would elevate things here. Criticisms then, and potential improvements, said with a love. Quality-wise, the cardboard boxes with the packages in them didn't survive the journey too well, and mine just burst and spill out over the floor. Of the other one that did hold together, one fell apart opening it. The one you saw is the other one. The card packets themselves are of quite heavy-duty plastic that was a pain in the arse to open without scissors. The cards are all fine, but the hexes and their tokens have to be popped out of a larger sheet of card, and that card is rather thin, and the coating with the actual hex and tokens on it likes to cling and tears less easily than the card, which tends to make popping them out a bit messy and a pain. The hexes and chits would be a lot better if they were printed on slightly higher GSM card and with better die stamping to make them pop more easily. The card as it is doesn't bump together very well. You kind of need that thicker cardboard for that. It would be more pleasing with thicker card, chits and hexes, more sort of in the style of Fantasy Flight or the older hex and token war games. Gameplay wise, it would be more fun, potentially more tactical, if you had to lay a hex each turn in some way. So you could try to lay hexes ahead of time to advantage yourself and to box in other players with hazards, and then maybe allow exploring as an alternative. So you can either go for the bad thing that's already there, or go for something unknown that might be worse. That would also see an ever-evolving board where all aspects of play become tactical and meaningful, and there are more ways to screw over other players, but it's just a thought. I also don't feel like the aesthetic is being used to its fullest effect here. There's a lot of techno-fantasy and SF elements that can feel a bit jarring. You talk about mummies and tombs and robbing crypts, and I think Brendan Fraser blasting undead with a shotgun, or Rachel Weisz getting into a bikini fight with Patricia Velasquez. I don't think of smart missiles and psychic blasts, you know? I would have liked the theme to come across more strongly, but I can also see how this formula could be applied to other genres and ideas, and how it could be adapted even to a game I'd considered making of hex exploration by rival pirate crews on the other side of the Bermuda Triangle. Style-wise, a low 3, the artwork could be better, the evocation of theme and mood could be better, but ultimately Raven's known for his crazy syncretic mashup settings, so I think all it would really need would be a bit more exposition and scene setting. As a game, it's absolutely fine. I'm just one of those weirdos who think there shouldn't be ludonarrative dissonance even in board games. If it does well, or at least well enough, I think there's a lot of potential here for a 1.5 or a 2.0 edition with better art and an upgrade to the hex materials. Substance, a high 3. There's a complete game here, absolutely, and the collectible nature and possibilities for other genres make the game or game line potentially infinitely expandable. Solitaire gaming is fun, unless you draw your exit right away. There's some unplumbed tactical depth in the hex placement that could be delved into more. It's a board card game. The depth is in potential combos and tactical brilliance, which can't really be assessed when I've had such a short amount of time with the game, mostly solitaire, but you can definitely tell that tactical depth is there. Overall then, 3 out of 5, by the upper end of 3. What's there most of all is potential, and it's worth supporting to a degree on the basis of both that and the fact that Raven is a good egg. And I've come around, due to some recent events, to thinking that we need to support people more on the basis of just being like good people. You know, we spend so long looking for the bad and the flaws and the horrid things that people maybe tweeted once back in 2016 or whatever, and we spend too little time celebrating the good about people where it exists. A few tweaks and improvements, and I think he has a good basis to go forward with something that could be a massive hit, though there's too many unpredictable factors to ever call that with anything like absolute certainty. Better, more evocative art, stronger theming, tighter rules explanations, and better quality materials would push the game to a solid 4. Also, a better website would help. The one they've got's functional, but it ain't purdy, and it looks like it's come out of the late 90s in a lot of ways. Zang.
The world is full of terrible erotica, exacerbated by the existence of the internet and the low barrier to entry. And no, it's not just men describing women in terms of how their boobies jiggle. Now you too can churn out cringeworthy, barely literate erotic nonsense with filthy shades cliché. 2 players, one the dom, one the sub, fill out bingo cards with awful words and props, and then try to fit them into their purple prose over several rounds of foreplay, sex, and aftermath. Whoever scores the most by working their words into their florid gibberish wins. This game was knocked up in an afternoon, but it only cost 50 cents, so bite me. Available at DriveThruRPG and post-mort.com.
This is the end of nations' borders. These are the fears I'm trying to hide.
And this is not a time to be dismayed. This is punk rock time. This is what Joe Strummer trained you for. It is now time to go. You're a good person. That means more now than ever.